Breach developer QC Games is shutting down, throwing the future of the 4v1 action RPG at anti-doubt. The Austin-based studio, which was founded back in 2015 by a group of former BioWare devs, broke the news in a post on the Breach website, where it thanked players for sticking with the game and providing feedback during its technical alpha and early access stages. Thank you for all the kind words of support and constructive feedback over the months. And thank you for believing in QC Games and Breach, wrote the QC Games team. Unfortunately, today is the last official day for QC Games. As we begin winding down internal operations on Breach, we are sure you have a lot of questions about Breach, your accounts, and the future of the game. Our team is still working on defining what this means for Breach and for our community, and we will post an updated article soon with answers to as many questions as we can cover. While it's currently unclear what will happen to Breach in the long term, QC has assured players that servers will remain online for the time being. Given the uncertainty, the studio has also turned off the ability to purchase both the Breach starter pack and in-game QC points, meaning players will not be able to drop any real-world cash on the endangered title. Capcom says the demo for its upcoming remake of Resident Evil 2 was downloaded over 3 million times since it went live on January 11th. The demo itself has an interesting quirk, dubbed the one-shot demo, the short slice of Resident Evil 2 gives players only 30 minutes to make their way through the enemies and puzzles in the game's early level. Once that 30-minute run is over, players cannot start the demo again on that same account. The downside to that limitation, however, is, inevitably, players quickly found ways around it that likely have inflated that 3 million download figure. Console players can make additional accounts to get a second, a third, or fourth shot, while PC players have found ways to trick the demo into allowing additional plays. Another interesting read on the demo comes from data shared on Capcom as a Resident Evil Net website. Of those 3 million downloads, roughly 2.5 million players opted to enable RingNet's Play Data Tracker and help gather more data on the demo's completion. For instance, only about 26% of those 2.5 million players completed the demo within the time limit. Following the Activision Blizzard layoffs hitting employees today, Venture reports that King's mobile game studio Z2 Live is shutting down, resulting in the loss of 78 jobs. King, the developer behind Candy Crush Saga, acquired the Seattle-based studio back in 2015 for $45 million. Z2 Live was known for developing the mobile Gamasutra Storm, Online and Battle Nations. The publisher did not comment on any specific layoffs during its earnings call with investors, saying instead that it expects around 8% of its staff to be laid off. The studio was likely shut down as Activision Blizzard said the company is focusing on its core franchises, despite the fact that Z2 Live generated an estimated $200 million over the last few years. If you are someone you know has been affected by this closure, you can mail Gamasutra to share your story confidentially. Additionally, an updated document of studios currently hiring can be found here. The Epic Game Stories Director of Publishing Strategy, Sergey Galyankin, known as Steam Spy, has clarified a few points regarding how Battlefront will target influencers and consumers. This comes after the Rosetta also provided a translated summary of an episode of How Games Are Made, a Russian-language podcast co-hosted by Galyankin, where it apparently discussed what developers and users can expect from that peak this year in terms of features. It's worth noting that the Red Setter thread is a summarized, roughly translated account of the podcast, and so the points given should be taken with a grain of salt. Epic currently has a system that allows developers to provide influencers with game codes that come with referral links to the game, offering the influencers a cut of a game sale when the link is used. As of right now, Epic covers the default 5% cut. Although developers can decrease or increase that cut, the program is reportedly not intended to be permanent, leading to speculation that devs will be asked to cover more costs in the future, with indies paying up to 20% in order to have their games marketed by influencers. Epic also takes a 12% cut of revenue from games sold on the storefront, with the Support a Creator program being optional. As of right now, the pricing system is also optional, so devs are able to decide if they want to give influencers anything from 0 to 100% of the revenue for every game they help sell. Gamasutra took to Twitter to clarify. Right now, a significant part of marketing budgets of big games is allocated to paid influencers. Gamasutra said on Twitter, "Those are one-off deals. I think having a way for influencers to be able to stream any game and make money without relying solely on big publishers would be awesome." Support a Creator program. A fortnight allows some creators to make enough money to go full-time. My hope is by extending it to Epic Games Store titles and getting more games on board, we will reach the point where it's possible for more creators. Our goal is to empower smaller devs to have the same access to creators that only big publishers right now can afford. It's not in any way mandatory. We are just leveling the playing field, giving devs the tools. On the other hand, it also levels the playing field for mid-sized and small creators. We found that relying small and mid-sized creators is actually better when running promotional campaigns. But there are so many of them. Most devs cannot manage that. We will give them the tools. Newsbrief. Brace Yourself Games, the studio behind the rhythmic dungeon crawler Crypt of the Necrodancer, is taking a crack at making its own Legend of Zelda game with Nintendo's blessing. It's a surprising move given that Nintendo is known for being somewhat protective of its flagship franchises, like The Legend of Zelda, and one that sees Brace Yourself Games bringing a unique fusion of its own game on Nintendo's classic series to the Switch later this year. The game itself is called Cadence of Hyrule, Crypt of the Necrodancer, featuring a Legend of Zelda, and offers a procedurally generated spin on the setting used in 2D Zelda games, like A Link to the Past. According to a press release, it'll play like a Necrodancer game, meaning hitting movement at attack buttons in time to remix the Legend of Zelda songs will be how players pilot Necrodancer's cadence, and the Legend of Zelda's Link can Zelda throughout the game. Fitting procedurally generated elements into an RPG means walking a tightrope, careful balancing and tuning, a task that's made even more challenging when the RPG in question is as nuanced and complex as Battletech. It makes sense, and that led designer Kevin Magin and the team at Harebrained Schemes attacked generating content for the recently released strategic Minor League. Complicated way. Procedurally generated missions were not actually a core part of the Battletech game Harebrained pitched on Kickstarter. They were one of the stretch goals, and when the campaign raised enough money to merit their inclusion, the team had to decide how best to incorporate them into a handcrafted strategy game with a core storyline. Gamasutra recently reached out to Magin told, "Hear more about how Shin and her compatriots implemented a procedurally generated mission system that can reliably present players with a believable setup and, perhaps more importantly, an interesting challenge. Her answers were so fascinating and so detailed that we thought you might enjoy reading them for yourself. Info below. How are the game side missions designed generated? How much of the content in them is set, and how much is procedural? Imagine, the procedural missions are built out of 3 layers. At the bottom layer is the map itself.